Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I just turned 50, a milestone, I guess. And while some people spend it surrounded by family and friends, being toasted and celebrated, I spent mine quietly, alone in a modest apartment with a store-bought cake I barely touched. Not because I don't have a family, but because my daughter, the person I love most in the world, chose to attend her father's wedding instead, to his mistress, my former best friend. Let me backtrack. My ex-husband and I were married for 22 years. We had what I thought was a solid, if occasionally mundane, life together. We had our ups and downs, of course, but we had a daughter who meant the world to both of us. I poured everything into being a good mom, building a warm home, and making sure she felt supported in everything she did. We were inseparable, my daughter and I. From her very first steps to her first heartbreak, I was there. Every dance recital, every science fair, every time she needed to vent about school or life, she came to me. We used to have late-night tea and watch terrible reality shows together, laughing until we cried. She called me her best friend. I honestly believed we had the kind of bond that would carry us through anything. Until the affair. My best friend, let's call her Linda, had been in my life since college. She was the maid of honor at my wedding, godmother to my child. We'd gone through everything together. Career changes, family deaths, financial stress, you name it. We trusted each other. Which is why it felt like a particularly cruel twist of fate when my husband sat me down one afternoon and told me that he and Linda were in love. They hadn't meant for it to happen, of course. They had tried to fight it, but the heart wants what the heart wants, right? I remember just staring at him, completely unable to process what I was hearing. I think I actually laughed. That weird, horrified, gut-punched laugh that bubbles up when your brain is trying to convince you it's all just a horrible joke. But it wasn't. I kicked him out that night. Linda called me a few days later. I didn't answer. She texted. She emailed. She even showed up once, standing awkwardly on my porch like she was there to borrow sugar, not explain how she managed to justify betraying the two people who trusted her most. Eventually, she stopped trying. My daughter, understandably, was shattered. At first, she was furious at her father. She stopped talking to him altogether for a while. We cried together. She swore she'd never forgive either of them. We leaned on each other. Then things started to change. About a year after the separation, my daughter, let's call her Rachel, told me she'd reconnected with her father. She said she missed him and didn't want to carry around anger forever. I understood that. I even encouraged it. Divorce is messy, but children shouldn't be caught in the crossfire. I told her I'd never force her to choose sides. What I didn't expect was for her to forgive Linda, too. It started slowly, mentions of having dinner at their house, casual references to Dad and Linda. I gritted my teeth and said nothing. What could I say? That I wish she'd hate them forever? That I didn't want her to build a relationship with someone who had caused me pain? I stayed silent because I didn't want to become the villain. Then Rachel started dating Linda's son. Let that sink in. The boy she'd known since she was a child, the son of the woman who broke up our family. The boy who used to come over for playdates. They fell in love. And as much as I wanted to scream at the sheer absurdity of it all, I kept my mouth shut. I told myself it wasn't fair to punish Rachel for the choices of others. I smiled through gritted teeth. I even congratulated her when they got engaged. She asked if she could get married at my country house. It's this beautiful rustic property in the hills, surrounded by trees and wildflowers. It had been in my family for decades. My parents left it to me, and while it needed some work, I poured time and money into making it something special. Rachel had always said it was her dream to get married there. She wanted to walk barefoot through the grass and dance under the string lights on the patio. I had my reservations. It held too many memories for me, but I agreed, because I loved her, because it made her happy. Then came my birthday. Turning 50 wasn't something I'd been particularly excited about, but I wanted to mark the occasion. I planned a quiet, intimate party with close friends and family. Rachel had known about it for months. She even helped me pick the venue. A week before, she called me. I'll never forget the tension in her voice. "Mom, I need to talk to you about next weekend." She told me that her father and Linda had finally set a wedding date. A small ceremony, very sudden, and wouldn't you know it, the same weekend as my birthday. She was going to attend, because in her words, she had to stand by her future husband, who was, let's not forget, the son of the bride. She said she hoped I would understand, that I'd be okay. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I think I just said, okay. Then I canceled my party, threw the cake away, cried in the shower so no one would hear me. That weekend, I didn't hear from her, not even a text. I saw the photos on social media, though. Rachel in a pastel dress, smiling with her arms around Linda, laughing with her father, toasting their happiness. A few days later, I got a call from my realtor. Someone had made an extremely generous offer on the country house. It wasn't listed, but they were local, had seen the property, and were prepared to buy immediately. For years, I'd resisted selling. Rachel always said she wanted her wedding there, so I held on to it, maintained it, paid the taxes and upkeep, because I wanted to give her that memory. But why? Why should I care about preserving a dream for someone who didn't think twice about skipping the biggest milestone in my life to go toast the people who had betrayed me? So I signed the papers. Rachel called a few days later, excited to discuss wedding plans. When I told her the house had been sold, she went silent. Then came the outrage, the accusations. I was being petty, spiteful. I had done it for revenge. I was trying to punish her. Maybe a part of me was. I'm not perfect. I'm human. And yes, it hurt, deeply. But the truth is, I sold the house because it no longer brought me peace. It had become a monument to everything I'd lost. Every time I walked through it, I was reminded of a life that no longer existed, and I got a damn good price for it. Rachel hasn't spoken to me since. She sent a message through a mutual friend, saying she didn't know if she wanted me at the wedding, that I was toxic. Maybe I am. But I also think I'm a mother who loved too deeply, who gave too much, and who finally drew a line when she realized that love wasn't being returned. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for selling the house my daughter wanted to get married in after she chose her father and his mistress over me? Honestly, I think OP is not the a-hole, not even a little bit. OP's daughter didn't just miss OP's birthday. She missed OP. She prioritized the people who shattered OP's family, and then had the nerve to act shocked when OP stopped sacrificing her well-being for her convenience. Selling the house was more than justified. It wasn't revenge. It was reclaiming OP's peace. At the end of the day, it's OP's property, and she can do whatever she wants with it. She made her choice. Actions have consequences. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Absolutely not the a-hole. I can't imagine the emotional gymnastics it must have taken to sit through your daughter dating your ex-best friend's son. And then she chooses their wedding over your 50th? That's more than a schedule conflict. That's a values conflict. You didn't burn the bridge. She did. You just stopped pretending it was still walkable. This reads like a masterclass in restraint. You put up with betrayal from two people you loved, watched your daughter cozy up to both, and still kept giving. If anything, I think you let it go too long. Selling the house wasn't petty. It was symbolic. You're allowed to let go of pain, and your daughter calling you toxic is just projection. She needs to take a long, hard look at what she's asking of you. Everyone sucks here, but I say that gently. You're clearly hurt, and understandably so. What your ex and former best friend did was awful, no doubt, and it sounds like your daughter's choices have reopened old wounds you've worked hard to manage. But I also think you haven't quite acknowledged that your daughter is trying to survive this messy, tangled family dynamic too, just like you are. She shouldn't have skipped your milestone birthday, especially for that wedding. That was a painful choice, and she should have seen how that would devastate you. But it also sounds like she was put in an impossible position, one that you, unfortunately, made harder when you sold the house immediately afterward. You say it wasn't revenge, but come on. From her perspective, it looks a lot like it. You were still making plans with her for the wedding when you sold it without warning. That stings, no matter how justified you felt. You both have a right to your feelings, but the way it's played out now is just a cycle of silent punishment. I think the damage here is deeper than the country house. This is about years of betrayal, divided loyalties, and everyone expecting the other to act like nothing ever happened. First off, until about a month ago, I hadn't spoken to my dad, stepmom, or half-sister in like 5 years at least. I'm 15 years older than my half-sister, and I haven't had a good relationship with any of them, ever. I got married about 6 years ago, and at that time, my youngest sister, let's call her Louise, was going through a hard time. She and her boyfriend, now ex, just had a baby. They had both dropped out of high school and had nowhere to live. My husband and I were combining households, and I owned a duplex I bought before we had met. So I moved out of the half of the duplex I lived in and moved in with my husband. I rented out one side of the duplex, and we decided to offer the side I moved out of to Louise and her boyfriend. In theory, it was a great setup for them. It is a block away from an adult education program, so they could have gotten their GEDs in a couple of months. Plus, right next door to the program is a trade school. We offered to let them live in the duplex for free, pay their utilities, and pay for their classes at the trade school. My husband and I do pretty well for ourselves and wanted to give them a hand. We also helped out with groceries, and I helped arrange their class schedules so that they could each take a turn taking care of their baby while attending school. They seemed grateful for it, but it completely blew up. They at least did get their GEDs, but dropped out of the trade school after we spent a couple of thousand to enroll them. Then they began throwing parties, and our tenant moved out, and no one else wanted to move in because of them. We had to have them legally evicted, but not before they caused approximately $30,000 worth of damage. My husband and I chalked this up to lesson learned. But my dad and stepmom were pissed when we had Louise and her boyfriend evicted, because then they became my dad and stepmom's problem. I was pissed that they gave more of a crap about Louise than the well over $40,000 we blew through helping them out, only for them to piss it away and treat us like garbage. So I deleted them from my life. Fast forward to 4 months ago. My husband and I said YOLO and moved across the country to an area that is a vacation destination. We've had some family members visit us a couple of times and post on social media about how much fun they've had while visiting and all that. Well, cue Louise reaching out. She apologized for what went down 5 years ago and largely blamed her ex for most of it. Fine, whatever. I can play nice too. I accepted her apology and allowed her to follow me on Instagram. She has been kissing my butt, gushing over pictures of my baby, my home, and whatever else she can. Well, I knew damn well what was coming. Yesterday, she posted a screenshot of an airline reservation for the airport closest to me, and this long paragraph on how we have reunited after 5 years of not talking. But she and her best friend are going to fly out and see me so we can spend some sister time together. I never ducking invited her, nor do I want her or her friend in my house. I called her and asked her about it, to verify that she was planning on staying with us and also to dash her hopes. She said, "Surprise! I thought we could visit the Disney parks and Universal for a few days, and then the beach. You're good with driving us, right? I don't know if we will have the money for a rental car." I said, "Where are you planning on staying?" There was this long pause, and she said, "With you." I replied, "If you would have spoken to me first, you would have known that we're going to be out of town that week for husband's brother's wedding. Plus, I know how you feel about the virus vax, and we aren't going to let people stay with us who aren't getting the vax. There are plenty of good hotels around here, so you should look into that." She started screaming into the phone, but I just hung up. Now, my dad and stepmom are calling and leaving messages complaining at me for letting Louise and her dumb friend spend all that money on plane tickets, only to not let them come. One message says I should just let them stay at my house while we are gone, and also leave one of our cars for them to use. And since we won't be there anyway, what's the harm? Anyway, not gonna happen. Their phone calls are now all blocked. Re-deleted all these people from my life, and nothing of value is being lost once again. Oh, hell no! Louise does not deserve anything from you and your husband. She is mega entitled. OP spent $40,000 on me before, and now she'll let me and my friend crap all over her again. Dad and stepmom are enraged for the simple fact that they will be responsible for Louise. Louise should be responsible for herself, but we both know that's not going to happen. Just because you live in a tourist spot does not make your home a free-for-all. Cut the dead wood. I, female 38, just found out that I'm 19 weeks pregnant. I'm having an A on Friday. When the midwife told me I was pregnant, I had a mental breakdown. My husband, 47 male, was as disturbed because this was a big shock for us. I've been on the pill for over 20 years, and we only have sex 1 or 2 times a month. Anyway, today we got back home from the hospital with permission to have the permission from the National Board of Health and Welfare, required after 18th week in my country. I just crashed in my bed and I have been crying nonstop. On our way home, my husband said something that I found very hurtful, and it broke my heart. We were talking about us making the right decision. We can't take care of children, etc. He then said, I have promised my sister to take care of her children in case something happens to her, so I can't really have other children. I don't know why I was so hurt. It felt like he was rejecting my babies to make place for hers. I almost fainted in the taxi, but didn't say anything. His sister, 39 female, has a chronic disease. It isn't deadly, but apparently when she got pregnant, he made her a promise that he would take care of her children in case something happened. 7 male, 6 male, and 4 male. I feel so bad because if he had told me something like this any other time, I would think it very adorable and noble. But when he told me the same day we decided to get rid of our own, it was like a knife in my heart. He literally started crying and saying, we can't have children, when the midwife told us I will need a permission and that I might not get it. I am so confused with my own feelings. I feel betrayed and lied to. We both wanted a child-free life. Why does it matter for me what his reasons are? How is him wanting to take care of his nephews different from any other reason when the outcome is the same? Edit. I should mention something else that popped in my head when he said he promised to raise his nephews. My husband is very blonde. So is his whole family. I am dark. When his sister gave birth to her first child and we visited, I held the baby and told her he's so cute. And these stuff people say about babies. My mother-in-law looked up hopefully and told me maybe I should reconsider not having children. My husband got very irritated. When we got home, I told him not to worry. Just because I thought our nephew was cute doesn't mean my clock starts ticking. He turned and looked at me and said, "You will never have blonde babies." I was taken aback and told him I didn't think the baby was cute because of its color. All babies are cute. He told me again, yes, but you will never have blonde children. In a marriage, you talk to your spouse before you commit to taking on 3 children should something happen to their parent. He told you he wanted a child-free life. What he actually wants is to maintain a space in his life for his nephews, which is good and noble. But he lied to you. You actually do want a child-free life. You don't want kids, full stop. That's a lot to reconcile, especially when you're going through an A. Edit. On top of everything else, he seems horribly R too, and seems to not want children with you because they won't be blonde and white. Me, 37 male, and my wife, 38 female, have been married for 10 years and together for 15 years. I am a software engineer and my wife is a nurse. In early stages of marriage, we tried for a baby for about 2 to 3 years, but no result, so we consulted a doctor. He told us that my wife was infertile and could never be able to become mother. We decided to live child-free and we adopted 3 dogs. About 7 months ago, my wife had a crapload of work at hospital due to virus, and she had to spend most of the time at hospital. Whenever she came home, I would be asleep because I had to take care of home and dogs, plus my own work, so I was exhausted at the end of the day. During this time, she grew closer to one of her colleagues, 40 male, and started an affair. They had an emotional affair, which turned into a physical affair. Their affair lasted for about 2 months. I had no idea about the affair because there was no noticeable change in her behavior. I think she changed her hospital branch on her own. I had no clue why she changed, but she told me that she had a fight with one of the employees, and they were being allocated in different branches for the same reason. About 2 months ago, my wife started crying on our dinner date and told me about the affair. I was crushed and ended up going for drinks. I drank way too much and was unable to drive back home. Luckily, our neighbor saw me and took me to home. I slept the night in the spare bedroom along with dogs. Next morning, I asked her about affair and why she did that. She answered by saying that there was no excuse for affair, and it was her fault and she was the wrong person. Then I asked her about the time span of affair. Apparently, the time span hurt me the most. For 2 months, how could she betray me every day, yet still put the mask on? She even hid it from me for about 4 months. I don't know why, but I stayed. Maybe it was her remorse and her passion to reconcile. After D-Day, I started drinking more, and every night I was blackout drunk at bar. My neighbor worked at the bar and always helped me to get home. This led to the attraction of me towards her. I know that revenge affair lead to mess-up situation, but at that time, I was just thinking ways to hurt my wife like she did to me. My affair started about a month and a half ago. My affair partner was my neighbor, 27 female, so it was not at all difficult for me to reach at her place. Whenever my wife went to work, I invited her to my house or I would go to her house. This went for about 5 weeks. She told me that she was on birth control, so we did not use protection. She was looking for a long-term relationship, so she was just casually dating me. About 2 weeks ago, my wife came home early from work and saw me kissing the neighbor in her room through the window. She non-stop banged the door and was crying like crazy. As soon as I opened the door, she attacked my affair partner and grabbed her hair. I lifted her and took her to our home. At home, she had a panic attack. I thought that I would feel better after revenge, but I was feeling more disgusted in myself. That night, we talked about details, and she was angry that I took my affair to our home. She said she doesn't want to know detail because that would make her more resentful to our home, and everything would be a trigger. That night, she tried to attempt S, due to which she was sent to a mental health hospital for a week. Now we are in a better place and happy with each other. She came home last week and we are trying hard to reconcile, but this morning my neighbor sent me the message that she is pregnant and I am the dad. I immediately called her and asked her that she was taking birth control, so how could she get pregnant? She said that she changed her pills from one brand to another, and so that could be the reason. I asked her if there was any other possibility of being father, to which she said I was the only one she was sleeping with for about 2 months. Now I am regretting my decision of revenge affair, and apparently my wife would not be able to handle this news. I know I am biggest scumbag and not deserve another chance, but I truly want to reconcile and be with my wife. My wife has always dreamed of having children. I don't want to hurt her feelings. I talked to my affair partner about A. She said that she had 3 miscarriages until now. She would not A the baby if baby survives. I don't know if I should tell her or not, and if I should tell her, how should I tell her? Any advice is appreciated, and you can cuss me in the comments. You have to be honest. Your wife deserves to know that you didn't use protection with your cheat partner, so she can get tested for STDs. You also have to tell her the other woman is pregnant. She will find out eventually, and things will be much worse if you hide it from her. Gonna be honest, your marriage is probably over, and should be. If there is any chance of saving it, it will require total honesty, total transparency, marriage counseling, and probably moving. This requires a bit of background. I, 32 female, have 4 children, and a series of life events found that they each have a different biological father, although they all call my husband Dad. 2 of my children I had at a very young age, and it caused a lot of chaos in the family at first. Well, when my sister was 14, she decided she was going to be child-free for life after watching me struggle, and to this day, she hasn't changed her mind. While it is everyone's choice if they want to raise a family, she openly used me as an example of a terrible life you can have if you start having kids. While I admit I am not a good example of responsibly having children, I have got my life turned around and have provided a good home for all of my kids, making sure they even had a father figure around. I'll give an example of some of the stuff she has said, done. She refuses to go on family outings or vacations unless they are child-free. Therefore, one of us is always excluded from going, and it's usually her because the rest of the family loves my kids. She repeatedly makes fun of the fact that my kids are half-siblings and not full siblings, and told my oldest that he's old enough to know husband is not his dad. For the record, oldest knows who his bio dad is, but chooses to call husband dad. She calls me breeder and other derogatory terms, referencing me being irresponsible. Finally, she brags to me about how she can live so much easier without having childcare expenses. Well, her child-free lifestyle upset my parents, and when they passed away, they left everything to me and my brother with explicit instructions to use the money on our kids' college. Brother ended up receiving 20%, and I got 80% of the money, and this was received as just a wire transfer. The thing is, the money was a lot more than would be required for my kids' education, even if college prices continue to rise. And this means that brother and I have a lot of excess money to spend. Well, sister came over and asked if she could use the money on an elective surgery to make her body more authentically pleasing after she had a cancer removed. I just told her to use the money she saved by being child-free. Brother, who only has one child, received much less and doesn't want to share with her either. I could pay for it without dipping into the kids' fund at all, but I just don't want to. Am I the a-hole for throwing my sister's child-free attitude back in her face and refusing to help her? Everyone sucks here. There is no way you were obligated to give her the money. The way she has been behaving towards you was awful, and she had no right expecting you to pay for her surgery. Having said that, the way you rejected here was just spiteful in a situation where your sister was vulnerable. You could have handled that better, in my honest opinion. None of this makes sense. First, we have an impossibly large number of children. Then, we have parents apparently being supportive of one daughter having multiple children by multiple partners, while being unsupportive of the other daughter following a normal life path by remaining child-free in her 20s, writing their disapproval into their will, and then conveniently dying at an unusually young age simultaneously. And that's before we get to the cancer stuff.